Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah Jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Thank you for tuning in on AWANI, and right now we're in the conversation of digitalization, where the tech industry is constantly evolving rapidly across the globe, and not just in Malaysia, and with new tools and technologies emerging at an incredible pace. We have AI, artificial intelligence, we have automation, semiconductor, many more going on, IoT, Internet of Things. And right now, businesses everywhere are striving to stay competitive by adopting these innovations, and also they streamline operations and also to enhance customer experience and also growth at the same time. So in Malaysia, we have this adoption. The government is actively promoting digital adoption, especially among SMEs, and they have initiated through these some initiatives like NIMP 2030, and they also have the My Digital Blueprint introduced by them. So this transformation is not just by staying competitive today, but also about future-proofing all these businesses in an increasingly connected and digital world. However, these rapid investments have outpaced the development of corresponding skills within the workforce. So that's what we want to talk about today. So we have the right authority to discuss on this. We have founder of Open Minds, Jen Wong, joining me in the studio this morning. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Perhaps we could start with whatever that I said earlier with introduction. Perhaps you could start with explaining or introduction about an overview of the current state of digital adoption and about the workforce readiness in Malaysia right now.
Sure. I think we live in very interesting times today. I mean, you mentioned very well earlier that technology is really being pushed, not just by the tech companies themselves, but different government authorities as well in Malaysia. So you see a lot of initiatives being rolled out, you see a lot of good work being put out as well, a lot of training programs, a lot of resources given. But if you ask me honestly, when it comes to the industry readiness, I think there's still a lot of gap in many areas. There is an awareness gap, there's a legacy problem, there's a competency gap as well. And all this kind of restricts the growth to some extent of Malaysia as a whole. Why I say that is because, let's talk about a simple one. Let's talk about legacy issues, right? There are a lot of companies in Malaysia that is very tied back to a lot of legacy processes and structures. And this actually restricts them from growing because it's always, oh, I've been in business for 20, 30 years right now. Why should I use technology? Why should I learn? You know, we've been okay so far. We've been earning good money, bigger family business sometimes as well. They see no need to evolve. And to be honest, if it's not because of the COVID lockdowns, we may be in a far behind state compared to today. If it's because of COVID, that's why we force ourselves, but still there's a gap even with legacy issues. Then comes by very closely is the whole awareness to digitization. Many people, when we talk about digitization, they think about AI, they think about robots, they think about big data. Sounds expensive, sounds complex even, but in reality it's not like that. Right? Digitization could be as simple as, oh, instead of just taking orders offline, now maybe you can try WhatsApp, or you can use social channels, you can try automating different things, but somehow the mindset of a lot of SME owners especially is still stuck somewhere.
Basically, when we talk about all these jargons, actually it hit me as well when we first introduced with AI and all those these big technology. It had hit me as well. But in your opinion, what could be the factors that actually contributed to all these gaps that you mentioned earlier?
I think it's also because of the level of education or literacy when it comes to this word digitization. But it's not someone to blame actually. It's also because a lot of times when we read articles, a lot of the articles like to talk about these jargons. So even on social media, when we read business news, right, everybody's talking about these few things. So it causes a lot of misunderstanding within the industry. But in actual fact, when we talk about digitization, we are really just talking about how can technology make life or make business run smoother or easier? How can we optimize processes? So when we think about it from that extent, right, it's to the level where even a burger store by the roadside can actually digitize, all the way if you are a chain of businesses or even if an MNC, that also applies to you. But at different level, this word could apply in different shapes and sizes.
Like I mentioned earlier, we have few initiatives that was introduced by our government. We have My Digital initiatives and also the NIMP 2030 that's speaking mainly on this digital transformation. So in your opinion, does these initiatives actually meet, or actually how is the disconnection between the readiness, workforce readiness, and digital transformation at the same time?
First and foremost, I think all these initiatives are great because these initiatives supports in the area of sometimes hiring, competency upgrade, or even from a perspective of funding. But I think there are still several gaps that is yet to be addressed. Number one, sometimes these initiatives or these resources that's given are a little bit inaccessible. So when I say inaccessible, because sometimes the right information is not disseminated, a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals are unaware that such initiatives even exist. And if they know that exists, they are not familiar even with the process of signing up for it. Where do they go to apply? Who qualifies? What are the considerations? How much are they able to get? You know, all these intricacies sometimes is not very made known to the public. Therefore, it forms some sort of a barrier. But on top of that, there's also the limitation of sometimes being too basic or too specific. So in this digitization topic, right, there's always two groups of resources in play. One, the extremely basic. So these are the, or if you don't know anything, there's a kind of like a startup thing coming on, you know, and they just go in and learn the basics. And then there's one that's super specialized. These are the one they mentioned, deep tech lah. You need to really understand,
Experts.
you know, the experts that go into. But a lot of us in the SME scene actually falls in between. We kind of know, so we don't need the basic. We don't need people to tell us what is AI, what is ChatGPT. We kind of figure it out already. But at the same time, we are not like, oh, we know everything about data analytics and now we just want to scale globally. And this is the part where I think needs a lot of help and attention on.
And when we talk about digitization, especially in businesses, we have to think about the SMEs as well, the small, medium, and also medium enterprises. So these are the team or segments that can actually have problem when it comes to digitalization in their business.
That's right.
So with all this government's efforts like NIMP and the My Digital earlier, we know that they still report a lack of digital talent. So when it comes to that, what do you think are the main barriers that preventing for the fully effectiveness of these initiatives?
One of the main things we've actually briefly talked about just now, when we talk about talents, right? A lot of the education access that we have right now, again, still focuses on the basic level. So for example, we talked about ChatGPT earlier. All of us are probably quite familiar with ChatGPT by now. We've probably played around with it. But how do we apply ChatGPT into actual business use cases? How do we
actually use it on a daily basis?
We do, we do. And
Same as
just
newsroom
me.
as well.
Yes, oh really? Okay, that's great. But there are a lot of people out there, right? They're lost in transition. So they know it's fun. They use it like an alternative to Google. But how do you apply it to business? How do they apply it to shorten their decision-making process? Now, that's a question mark. Same goes to even when you talk about big data or customer relationship management or doesn't automation work. Again, the problem is, okay, I'm familiar with the concept, but how do I apply it? So the whole thing about the talent pool right now, I think it's still considered quite in the infancy stage. Of course, it takes time for education to build up, but at the same time, it's the ability to practice some of this knowledge that's being acquired. Now, that is where I think a lot of challenges start as well. So you can attend a course, and then I come back to my office, and then, what can I do with all these materials, right? I've learned all that is necessary, but there's no real-life application to apply. So that is one of the reasons why this talent gap is also there. And then number two, because of the first reason, a lot of companies, SMEs, or even the medium-sized companies, right, they find it, they don't know when to hire such talent as well. When they hire, they don't know which part of the business they should place them in. Should they be considered as part of the IT team? Is it a marketing team? Is it a customer success team?
Or admin team?
Or admin team even, exactly. Or even the content creation team, right? So they find it lost. So as companies are still stuck within this conundrum in understanding or finding a fit for them, they are very also reluctant to hire. Then guess what? The third problem happens. Some of these good talents migrate. They go into Singapore, they go into other countries which so-called they're more accepting of this technical AI-based or digitized talents, and therefore leaving us in, again, a lack within the talent pool.
Still on the initiatives, like government has done their part, they have introduced few initiatives, and also, but we can still, there's a gap like you mentioned earlier. So what can they do differently? The government also stakeholders do differently to actually make sure that the businesses and also SMEs can actually adopt this digitalization? Because the effort is there, the thought is there, but how can we do better or foster this technological development in all businesses?
I think there are two things that still has much room to be worked on. One is the engagement bit, one is the collaboration bit. So when I talk about engagement, I'm talking about how even government sectors should actually have more engagement with the private sectors to understand where is the market at right now. Do we really need more on the expert level, or do we still need to focus on the infancy stage for the beginners? And where is the main focus that the government should actually go on in terms of the entire life cycle of a particular company? That's one. But collaborations also become very important. I think as amazing the government is now in building all these policies and pushing Malaysia into a more digitized nation, there is always limited capacity in actually rolling out some of these initiatives. So extending some of this into maybe some of the tech giants that we have are coming or investing into Malaysia right now to make it more accessible for the masses, I think that's very, very important. So when we do that, I think the government is able to decentralize the education, they're able to decentralize the resources, therefore reaching a lot more pockets of businesses rather than just those that are familiar with some of these policies.
Let's put in a situation where we put SMP, for example. What happens in the long run, in the long term, if they don't actually adopt this digitalization in their business? What happened to their economic growth?
Oh, I think the impact is actually quite significant. I mean, just look around, right? A lot of countries right now are all moving towards a similar direction. If some of these initiatives are not able to rise up, not just new talents, but businesses that thrive within this area, I think overall the competitiveness of Malaysia or SMEs will be greatly hampered. Why? Because other countries are moving a lot quicker with the infra and all that. And if we continue to stay where we are, that's going to be one major limit. But that's not all. When this happens, that also limits the amount of talents that we will put out. I mean, the talent pool in Malaysia will look less appealing compared to people from other countries, which is not true, actually. But when the take-up rate of digitization is at low, these talents have nowhere to go to expand. I mean, it's not just about digitization. We have seen this happen before in other industries like esports or even the animation industry, where we have such great talents, but there's so little demand within Malaysia. And therefore, that when this has an imbalance, that's where the entire gap actually surfaces, becoming bigger and bigger.
It's a chicken and egg situation, after all.
It's a chicken and egg situation, that's right.
And when we talk about the challenges, it's like you mentioned, it limits the ability to innovate, increase the productivity, and also how can we actually to remain competitive in the global market. So in your opinion, what are some of the risks or downside risks that businesses, especially in high-tech sectors, can actually face due to this skills shortage in the long term?
I think the first obvious one is going to be an increase of costs, because we are no longer able to leverage on local talents or to build local talents. That means that companies will need to depend a lot on foreign money or foreign talent, and that is always not a very good thing for us Malaysians here. Anyway, not only it limits our capabilities, it limits our growth. That's one. But number two, when this is also limited to them, that means the access to certain infrastructures would also be limited, because it's a demand and supply thing, right? And if the demand is high but the supply is low, then they have to look elsewhere to acquire such support, whether it's external infra, whether it's, again, foreign resources coming in. I mean, some people may argue to say that it looks great from a FDI investment perspective. That could mean more money coming to Malaysia, but at the same time, our talents are all being exported externally. So again, it's a vicious cycle being activated that may not be so good, even for some of these high-tech companies.
And this imbalance in the skill gap, actually, it's been worrying in whole industry. So how can actually MarTech Solutions plays their role in helping businesses achieve this digital maturity?
Great question. I think it starts from the very basic. It starts from the mindset of a lot of these companies to first recognize that there is a need to digitize, because this is the first barrier towards the whole legacy issue. So if you're able to address that, the next step is for businesses to recognize within the entire business operations, are there areas that is outstanding, that requires help from digital. Yeah, so whether it's customer service, whether it's content creation, whether it's with decision making, generating reports, or just automating some of the mundane processes, it's good to start off with that small bit. Why I say that is because a lot of companies jump into the very extreme picture when it comes to digitization. Oh, I want to digitize this. Let's revamp the entire company's operation. Let's hire a new team of people, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people in just to undertake that one particular task in which they don't know whether it works for them or not in day one. So when they start progressively, what they're able to do is to start a small department, maybe test it out with 3 to 5 people. Maybe you can even start with some free tools just to see whether it works for you. And if it works, then you hire. Then you expand capabilities. Then you implement more sophisticated solutions to help you address that particular gap.
But how do you measure the actual digital maturity? Do you have any benchmarks to see their progress?
Oh, I think there are a lot of sophisticated tools to do it. But the simplest of all, right, is literally as a department owner or even as a company owner, you just need to match it with your immediate business goals first. So for example, if I look at the content team, very simple matrix. The content team right now is able to do, I don't know, 1 piece of content a day. Now, maybe your goal was to do 3. By implementing such a tool, how far can we go? Can we really hit 3? Or is it still at 1? If it's 1, something is wrong. If it's 1.5, maybe there's something that can be done from there as well. So a lot of these matrix should be identified very closely to a company's goal or objectives in the first place. Because every company is different. They have different needs to look at. Some it's really, like you said, the productivity side of things. For some, it's really just, I want to have better governance and it's taking too much time and effort to do it manually. And all these different aspects have different level of matrix. Companies can identify it, use that as a start at least. Then you can look at the more complicated calculations out there.
Do you have any success stories or actually examples how Martech has actually helped in digitization of her business?
Oh, plenty. There are plenty. This can take the entire day actually.
The whole segment.
The whole segment.
No worries, you can share at least 1 or 2.
Sure. I remember there was one automotive project that we actually work on, right? And when it first came to us, they were very fixated in improving marketing output. But when we looked at the entire case study, we realized that the real problem wasn't marketing. It was actually how they are able to budget more effectively to target the right audience. And traditionally, they relied a lot on a manual approach. So they're a global company. What they do is they did a lot of offline surveys, which is very common until today. They go and survey the market, what they're buying, what do they like to buy, where do they go to buy, the method of buying, the usual works, right? And that takes a lot of time. And we realized that whatever they've collected, when it's transited online, somehow there's always a mismatch. So what we did together, we helped them actually launch a whole digitized data collection method using a loyalty program. Very simple. Basically, the existing customers will download the particular app, they'll use it, but as we collect the data, that actually informs the client which aspect they should invest more, so that overall, when you look at the entire advertising and marketing budget, it actually reduced. It becomes a lot more optimized. And that allows them to make better decisions. Oh, in this particular season, I should push out product A. In this particular season, let's lower down budget for product A because it doesn't make sense. Let's push product B and product C. So overall, this actually enables a company to make very specific marketing decisions rather than just on an emotional basis. Oh, everybody's doing this, let's promote this right now as well. Oh, I think this works great, let's promote more of this particular product. But it doesn't work that way. So cost optimization can also play a big part in digitization.
So it doesn't only save cost, it saves time as well at the same time. So the optimization is the most important thing in this transformational of digitization. Right. So let's look at your long-term vision, especially. What are your long-term vision for Malaysia's digital landscape, and especially in terms of workforce readiness, and where do you see the Malaysia in the next 5 to 10, perhaps, years?
I think we live in quite optimistic times in Malaysia right now. It's quite a good timing with all this good news of foreign companies setting up shop in Malaysia and Malaysia having this whole entire digital roadmap being rolled out for the entire nation. I think we're on a good track. So if you ask me where do I see the level of education or literacy towards digitization to greatly increase, at least within the next 3 to 5 years. We are already seeing some of these early signs happening. I work very closely with universities, and I see a lot of universities in Malaysia even is putting a lot of emphasis, even beyond their fixed curriculum, to expose students to what's happening on the outside world. So all these are stepping stone towards being a so-called a more digitized nation, which is a good thing. And I think where I'm at right now, although I still see a gap between what is being offered and what can we offer.
The balance, yeah?
Yeah, the balance is still not really there yet. But I think as one of the companies within Malaysia, we are also very geared towards to see what we can do to match this to basically Malaysians.
To bridge the gap, yeah?
To bridge the gap, that's right.
And as for an industry expert yourself, how do you see any trends or emerging technologies that you see in the future, perhaps that could actually accelerate the digital literacy and also the workforce readiness in Malaysia, especially in this digitalization?
I know we talk about jargons as confusing
Correct.
just now, but I think I also still need to put out this jargon, which is
It's not only jargons, it's how do I say, it's hard to pronounce it as well,
even,
digitalization.
Right? Exactly. But I think there's one word we cannot escape from today, which is AI, artificial intelligence, right? And I don't just say AI in the form of generic terms, but you talk about upskilling workforce or even talent. AI plays a big role in education too. Why I say that is because AI today is able to even cater to your learning pace, to showcase to you the right information that you should know then. All the way towards AI in our daily lives, AI within the work that we particularly do as well. This becomes a major component moving forward. Never there was a time where AI was so accessible and cheap.
Yeah.
Never was. It was only because of ChatGPT, OpenAI, that opens up the algorithm. More people are familiar with it. And then because today all of us have smartphones carrying with us, and then big companies like Apple and Google are pushing very much on AI. Because of this barrier of entry towards AI getting smaller and smaller, that actually benefits us as individuals, as companies, as a nation as well, to tap into this power into the next few years.
Anything that you can say all the business owners out there on this, on the digitalizing their businesses?
Sure, don't be afraid of digitalization. Don't be fearful of some of these so-called difficult to pronounce jargons, because with every jargon, there's always a way to go in at the smallest, easiest manner possible. Start small, try it out, don't be fearful, and I'm sure once you experience 1 or 2 successes, upgrading from there wouldn't be a problem at all.
Amazing. And we believe that by closing this gap actually requires a targeted hands-on digital education and skill to not to just upskill but reskill the Malaysians, the workforce and the whole ecosystem as well. So thank you so much to Jen Wong, the founder of Open Minds, for sharing your insights and for helping me understand better on this journey as well. So thank you so much, and you can find whole discussion on all of our social media and AstroAwani.com.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah Jiwa SME, Unified Business, Rakan Digital Pilihan Anda.